you get hit by the pitch and you don't want to go to first base. So first of all, can you clear this up once and for all? Did you get hit?
Yes. I had already hit 3 home runs that day, and I basically owned Hassangawa. And I knew first pitch, I said, okay, he's going to come up and in, and I'm just going to sit there and take. And, he ended up hitting me, and I was like, well, I want a chance to get 4 homers. I never had a chance. I've had one other chance to get 4 homers in a game. And I was like, and I told the ref, I was umpire, I was like, I'm not going to first base. I was like, I want to hit.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode number 222 of the Chris Rose Rotation, a production of John Boy Media. I got to tell you, I love doing this show. It allows me to introduce you to some people that I've gotten to know over the years, and this is a guy who really made me fall in love with baseball in the mid-'90s in Cleveland, Ohio. As you can see, I ordered his number 8 jersey back in the day, and I am thrilled to have with us today for the first time, Albert Belle. Albert, it's good to see you. Good. How are you, man?
Good to see you, man. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. See, people roll around still with number 8. I just want to tell you, I was in Cleveland recently. I see him all the time at Guardians games. You know that.
Yes, yeah. You know what? They still stick to the the old school jerseys. The 90s brought back some there was some great memories for when you were younger. Families used to come to the ballpark, bring their kids and stuff, and we started winning, and we made history and made a lot of great memories, and people still talk about those memories nowadays. I have a couple neighbors that are from Cleveland, and I see them walking around, and they still love the 90s.
Now, what the heck do you think that's like for your neighbors when they're rolling around out in Arizona where you live, and they're like, Albert Belle's living down the street?
You know what? When I see them, they have their Cleveland Browns, gear on. They're diehard, Cleveland sports fans. They got tired of the snow, and they retired and moved out here to the warm weather. And, even though today is kind of overcast, a little chilly, but we love that this time of year.
All right. So I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of people are. What do you do with your time these days?
Well, you know what? After I was done playing, I settled down, got married, started a family. I have 3 daughters, 2 in high school. And, my youngest one is 13. She's in 8th grade. So it's pretty much a full-time job with, teenage girls. And, I keep them busy. They're straight A students. They play multiple sports. And, right now there's about 4 or 5 weeks before track season start, and they're on club soccer break. So they're busy.
Any of them baseball or softball players?
You know what? They wanted to, when they were younger, but then when they saw like, wow, there's a lot of standing around, like, we don't like that. So, they love basketball, moving around. They love track. They love soccer. So baseball really wasn't kind of in the cards for them. They like to move around and keep busy.
Got it. Let's talk a little bit about your upbringing. Everybody has always told me Albert Belle was one of the smartest, not just hitters, people they were ever around. You graduated from your high school in Louisiana with about 250, 260 other kids. You were number 6 on the graduating list. Is that accurate?
6. Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. So what would you have done, do you think, if you hadn't been able to hit a baseball a mile?
Well, you know what? Because both my parents were school teachers, and they stressed the importance of an education. And I was hitting the books, and I wasn't allowed to play sports unless I kept my grades up. I made a lot of A's and B's, and I went to college at LSU, and I ended up getting a degree in accounting. And I just knew that I love working with numbers. And if something didn't work out, I would have, been a CPA, in an office. And, but, it worked out where, I got a couple breaks here and there, and ended up playing professional baseball. And once I was done playing, in order for me to play professional baseball, I had to make a promise to my parents that I would go back to college and finish and get my degree. And I did. So I do have a degree in accounting. And, I've shared some of that knowledge with my daughters, and they love accounting. So they want to go to college. They want to either be in finance or accounting or, business analytics. So they're pretty sharp kids. They decided they didn't want to play college sports, and they'd rather hit the books.
Nothing wrong with that, by the way. So I'm curious, did you do your own accounting when you played?
No, actually, my brother, my twin brother, he graduated 5th in the class, and we were at LSU together. He ended up getting his degree in accounting. He was in corporate America for a while, but we had always talked about the idea of him being my business manager, and he became my business manager in 1997 after I signed with the White Sox, and he managed my money and stuff, and he just told me to go out, focus on baseball, and he'll take care of all the business, read all the paperwork, do all the deals, and it worked out pretty well.
I got to tell you, if my twin brother graduated 5th in the class and I finished 6th, I don't know what I would have done.
Really? You know what? We were very competitive, growing up, but we always pushed each other in a positive way. We weren't, very combative where we were trying to, hold each other down. We always trying to push forward and to be better. That was a great thing about in college, having a twin. He was my roommate. We played baseball. So after we'd study, we'd go over to the stadium late night. And, we'd practice on the baseball fields, and some of our teammates would come over and practice. And the coach, he didn't have a problem. He loved it. We weren't out running and partying in college. Not so much after our freshman years, fun times. But, our sophomore and junior year, we buckled down, and we wanted to make LSU a top-notch program in the country, and we ended up becoming #1. But we had some players that were committed, and they worked hard. And that program, they worked us pretty hard. And our coach told us that when you leave LSU, you're going to be fundamentally sound and learn how to play and know how to play baseball.
Albert, I'm curious, because the scowl that you had when you went to the plate is infamous, right? Like today's generation is learning about it because they'll see all your highlights on YouTube. I lived through it because I saw your entire career. Were you mean mugging guys in Little League too?
You know what? It must have happened in college, and maybe in the minor leagues or something. Actually minor leagues wasn't very fun times. It's tough down in the minors, but, it's worth it when you get to the major leagues. But I never really realized I was doing that, until I got to the big leagues. But, in Little League, when we were pretty much winning just about every game, I was probably all smiles all the time. I think we only lost like a couple games over the course of a few years. But, then in high school, baseball became competitive, and probably got the scowl from football because we were a decent team, but we got pretty roughed up, pretty good. But the same players we saw in football, we saw them in basketball, and then we saw them in baseball. And, kids play multiple sports, but probably the scowl came from playing football.
Yeah. If you were that tough on the baseball diamond, what the heck were you like on the gridiron?
You know what? My senior year, I was the quarterback. And my junior year, I started at strong safety, but because I was a quarterback, I got moved to weak safety because my coach didn't want me to do all that hitting. And I was also the punter and the kicker. So I pretty much stayed on the field the whole time. And, those were some great memories. I kicked a few field goals here and there. We won some games, made the playoffs, but and that's the one thing I remember and always cherish about high school is we had coaches that made sure we had a lot of fun. And, they didn't know if we were going to go to college and play sports, but they made sure high school was a fun experience.
So my father, who passed away 12 years ago now, you were always one of his favorite. And this is a guy who lived through the Indians' last championship in 1948 and was friends with those players and everything. You were always one of his favorite guys because he was like, that dude just means business. It is that simple. Did you have fun playing Major League Baseball?
I did. I actually had fun. We had some fun guys on the team, whether it was Cleveland, Chicago, Baltimore. But I just kind of wanted to keep this, kind of tough guy image. But there's a couple times like, when I had some great highlights, hitting the game-winning home runs. There was a lot of laughter and stuff in the locker rooms, but I really didn't show it, out on the field. But I did. I mean, I was excited to play Major League Baseball every day. Cherish playing against, some great players, some legends. They're legends nowadays. Playing in the old stadium at Cleveland, that'll probably put a scowl on your face pretty quick playing at old stadium. But, the new stadium, was unbelievable. And I'm just glad that we were able to provide some great memories for lots of families in that area.
Always important to look your best. My hair, it stinks right now. It's why I'm wearing my Guardians cap. So maybe you're interested in getting a haircut sometime in the near future. Well, do you want a free haircut after this year's big game? That's right. If the big game between the AFC and the NFC's best, if that final score meets or beats 75 points, you could actually win a free haircut at Supercuts. That's if you register at supercutshighscore.com. You're probably wondering, Rose, why 75? That's because Supercuts has been cutting America's hair since 1975, and 75 just so happens to be the highest ever score in the history of the big old game. So we're looking for the over on the Supercuts high score of 75 points for a chance to catch free cuts at Supercuts salons nationwide. The fact that over 75 hit 4 times throughout the regular season, and last year's big game fell just a couple points shy at 73, that means you got a serious shot at this thing. So head on over to supercutshighscore.com to register, read the terms and conditions, and for eligibility. So once again, register at supercutshighscore.com. You could score a haircut after this year's big game. Go touchdowns! So I'm curious. You said, you did have a great time playing the sport. Do you wish, retrospectively now, that you had allowed yourself to maybe let other people see how much fun you were having? Or could you not have been the player that you ended up being if you had let that guard down?
Well, I think what probably kind of gets lost is when I went over to Chicago, I sat down, the owner sat me down, and the public relations manager, and we just had a conversation. And I just told him, I said, look, you know what? I don't have a problem talking with the media. I don't want to do it before the game. So, I'm willing to talk to, especially the local beat writers after the game. It won't be all the time, but, we sat down and we found a schedule that worked. And I gave out a lot of interviews. So I know they probably didn't see him back in Cleveland, but between Cleveland, Chicago,
I'm curious. I want to take you back to your major league debut in July of '89. First of all, do you remember how you got called up?
yes. We had just finished having the All-Star break, and we had a long homestand before the All-Star break, and Bobby Molinaro was my manager, and he called me in the office, and we were down in Canton, Ohio. That was the first year the team was there, and he said, listen, he said, all the big guys are coming. He said they want to watch and see what you can do. So I'm just letting you know, there's a chance you could get called up and skip AAA, but they want to see how you play. And I had a phenomenal homestand. And then we had the All-Star break. I played in the All-Star game. And then we end up traveling to Williamsport. And that was probably about a 12 or 14-hour bus ride. And, it wasn't it was probably like a rundown Greyhound that they kind of spruced up a little bit. But as soon as we get to Williamsport, Bobby calls me in the office, and he says, congratulations, you got called up to the big leagues. And I was like, oh, okay, that was great. I was like, well, I was hoping they would have told me back when I was in Canton, Ohio, so I could just drive like an hour away. And so I had to get a rent-a-car and drive back, and 14 hours. And then, I saw we were going to play the Rangers. And I was like, I bet you we're going to face Nolan Ryan. And, sure as hell we did. And I don't think I got much sleep that night, but I was excited. We were in the old stadium. There was, a few thousand fans, and, all the players, they came up to me and said hello and congratulated me and, whatever they can do. And, Joe Carter kind of took me under his wings. But I think it kind of lit a fire under the team, because they were like, wow, like they called up a kid from AA. So we better put a little pep in our step. And we actually started playing well. And I think we were about maybe like 2 games out of first place. And this was when, Corey Schneider went on the, at the time it was the disabled list. And, Joe Carter got hot. I mean, he had a phenomenal second half. And we started playing some great baseball, and it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, I remember we only were a couple games out going into August. I seem to remember something like that. But I'm curious, when you first stepped foot into the batter's box and Nolan Ryan is looking at you, what the heck were you feeling?
Well, you know what? I was like, well, he's got the gas. I'm looking for some gas. And he threw me a big curveball, ball one, and big curveball and for a strike, and I got a base hit and an RBI. And I mean, I was excited, and I wanted to scream and jump up and down, but I kept my cool, because I knew Nolan Ryan was like hardcore pitcher from Texas. And I know the second time I came up, it was like fastball strike 1, fastball strike 2, fastball strike 3, but at least I got my 3 swings in, but it was fun times. We ended up winning the game and beat Nolan Ryan. So we were off to a pretty good start from there.
You still have the ball?
Yes, it's at my parents' house in Louisiana. Most of my memorabilia is there. I have a few items here. But I let my mom and dad keep that stuff. They put it up in the trophy cases, and they enjoy it.
What's the most important piece of memorabilia you've got from your career?
You know what? I have my silver sluggers here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have 5 of them. I have them in a trophy case. I have a baseball players award where the players voted on me being the best player in baseball in 1995. So that means a lot, coming from the players where they thought I was the best player in baseball. So I have a few here. I'm not sure. I think my jerseys are in Louisiana, and I have some autographed bats here from guys who eventually got their 3,000 hits, and a pretty big collection.
Pretty good. I like that. So the players voted you as the best player in 1995. The writers did not. It pisses me off. Are you still mad?
No, I'm not. I mean, everybody knows, the story why I wasn't, voted the most valuable player. But to me, my focus was on, the team was winning. We had a phenomenal year. Got a chance to win a pennant in, X number of years, get into the playoffs, get into a World Series, and just watch the city just light up. I mean, everybody, I think just about half the people were walking around with Cleveland Indians gear on. Everybody was happy. They were excited. We put smiles on faces. And so that means more, to me than anything. Baseball is the ultimate team sports. And, in order for me to be successful, I had to have some pretty good teammates around me, to have some pretty good success, to put me in a position to succeed. And, that 95 team was a special team. I just got a text message from Carlos and Kenny, and they're doing fantasy camp, and I didn't even know. And they text me, and they were like, "Why don't you come on over?" And I was like, "You guys are like way over in Goodyear." It's like, that's a long way. That's, but it's always good to talk to those guys. I don't know when they're coming into town, but I know they'll pop into town, for spring training. So I'll try to get a hold of their schedule and go see them.
So for our younger viewers and listeners, they're not going to know, right? Because you lived through this. The rumor was because you weren't nice enough to the media that they weren't voting for you. And so when that didn't happen, when you had such an exceptional year and led Cleveland to its first pennant in 41 years and everything else, did it carry through the next year? I mean, now you're past it, but in 96, did it drive you?
You know what? 96 was my free agency year, and I knew there was a chance that I would probably test the free agency market and probably go to another team. I really wanted to come back. My agent, he was talking to John Hart all the time. They wanted to get a deal done in spring training. We tried to get it done. I ended up turning down the deal, but the main thing I wanted was, I said, okay, we can negotiate in spring training, but let's not let it leak to the media, because if something happens and we don't sign, I'm going to look like the bad guy. So let's keep it under wraps. And they all agreed. It was the owner, Dick Jacobs, John Hart, Dan O'Dowd, and myself and Arn Taylor, and we had a meeting. And then when we came out of the meeting, like Hoynes was kind of snooping around. And then the next day, it was like Belle turns down Indians deal, and I was like, uh-oh. So, I ended up looking like the bad guy, and I just told John Hart, I was like, let's just go in and play baseball and try to win this year and see what happens. So, I wasn't happy about that, because they had promised not to leak anything to the media, and they did. So,
just tell me, as a lifelong Cleveland fan, once that happened, was there any shot you were coming back, or that was it?
Well, here's the thing about the end of the 95 season. We had, you had a 25-man roster. We had 22 guys under contract. Eddie Murray wanted to come back. He didn't want to pay. He wanted to come back for the same amount. It was Paul Sorrento and Kenny Hill. They all wanted to come back for the same amount. Me, Carlos, and Kenny, we met with John Hart, and we was like, John, just bring us back. We will win it all. Same guys. Nobody wants to pay a raise. We're all under contract. Sign those three guys and let's do this. And he was like, wow, like, they didn't want to give Eddie Murray. They wanted Eddie Murray to take a pay cut. And he was making like $3 million. And they offered him $2 million, and he was pissed. And that was kind of like the start of the snowball, to where we ended up trading him. Sorrento and Kenny Hill left, and we brought in some guys, and it kind of changed our chemistry. And, we won 99 games, but we had a losing record against left-handed pitching. And we were like, okay, John Hart, you got to find us like a left-handed BP pitcher, because in the playoffs, we're going to see nothing but left-handers. And he's like, oh, you know what? We'll worry about that when we get to the World Series. And sure as hell, the first game was against David Wells. We played the Orioles, and he beat us. And then we ended up facing him again, and he beat us again. And we were packing our bags going home. So, just tinkering with the chemistry that much kind of threw everything off. And, we just weren't the same. And, I became a free agent, and my agent was like, "You ever thought about playing for the White Sox?" I'm like, "No, why?" He's like, "They're interested and they want to meet with you." And I'm like, "All right, you're pulling my leg." He's like, "No," he's like, "They want to meet. They're out in Vegas. They want to meet you." And I was like, "Okay." And I met Jerry Reinsdorf, and Schuler was the GM,
Mm-hmm.
and we sat down and we just talked, and Reinsdorf was like, "Hey, you're kind of like a cool guy and stuff." He's like, and I was like, "Yeah, you probably shouldn't read what you believe all the time, but I just have to be like a tough guy out there in between the lines." And they end up, working out a deal, and but I really wanted to stay in Cleveland, and so Arn Tellem was my agent, and he goes up to John Hart and he says, "John Hart, we have this deal on the table. Can you match it?" And John Hart was like, "Bullshit, you don't have that." And Arn was like, "Okay, we're going to sign with the White Sox tomorrow." And he's like, "Bullshit." And we're like, "Okay, there we go." Next day, we're flying to Chicago, did the interview, and I signed with the White Sox, and then I remember flying home. When I got home, I guess John Hart had a press conference, and he was like, "Yeah, we knew all along it was like all about the money and this and that," and so that's when I ended up going to Chicago.
I'm going to tell you a little story. I was working at CNN Sports when you changed teams, and it was my shift where there was breaking news. Albert Belle not only leaving, but signing the biggest deal in baseball history. And I had to deliver the news as a heartbroken Cleveland fan. So I'm like, Albert Belle has signed a 5-year, $55 million deal with the White Sox. And here I almost wanted to cry on TV is what I wanted to do. I was like, it was tough.
And
it was
you know
tough
what?
for
It
us
was
Clevelanders.
it was a tough time because I lived over in Euclid. I spent the off seasons in Cleveland. I golfed and hung out with people and got a chance to be involved in the community. I knew the pastor Blanton Harper over at his church in East Cleveland, and so I built some roots in the community, and I really wanted to stay. And it didn't work out that way, and I ended up leaving. But I knew I did not want to spend any winters in Chicago because they were saying the winters are worse in Chicago. And I remember I'd sit at home and I'm watching the Golf Channel, and I'm out here playing in the snow. I got all my Gore-Tex gear on and the pull cards, and they were like, "Yeah, it's sunny and 75 in Scottsdale, Arizona." And like, they're doing all these golf shows, and I'm like, "Well, why am I sitting here in this cold weather? Like, I could be playing golf in Scottsdale." And I spent a couple winters in Tucson, Arizona, and then I found out most of the baseball players were, living in Scottsdale in the off season, and then I moved here in the winter of '99 and became a full-time resident in '01.
So I'm curious about, it's well documented what happened the first time you came back. It was a little bit like when LeBron came back to Cleveland. It wasn't pretty, right? They're throwing the money at you. You gave the gesture, the whole bit. When you told me earlier that was a little bit not who you were you sad the way that went down afterward?
You know what? I was more angry because I know I remember when Manny and Tommy came back, they got like a video tribute. I know when LeBron came back, he got a nice tribute, and mine was different. And I was kind of expecting a harsh treatment, but I would have hoped the fans would have remembered the great times, because we went from perennial losers to now winners. And I was, excited to be a part to basically turn the organization around. And it just kind of made you feel bad that they turned on me that quick. And obviously, everybody knew it was about the money. And like I told people before, I'm like, I'm just basically doing the same thing you're doing. Like, you're changing jobs. Like, why did you change jobs? Because, and they were like, well, I got a better offer. And I was like, well, I'm doing the same thing. It's just, in baseball, and, you're doing it in your way of life. So, you shouldn't be too hard on me when, everybody else is doing the same thing. So,
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. Having worked in this industry for 30 years, like, I've been heartbroken. I was heartbroken when you left. I was heartbroken when Manny did it. Same with Tommy. Same with LeBron. I would never begrudge anybody because I understand the industry, right? And
right.
you know that most people don't we're fans. We buy look, I've got your number and I put my name on it because I loved watching you play. Nobody does that for politicians or their favorite businesses. They don't do that. It's like, so we feel like the minute you leave, it's personal instead of something else. So you get it.
Yeah, I get it. The fans, like, I'm a diehard Vikings fan, and I stick by them through thick and thin. And I've seen players come and go, and and I just stick with them. And I understand why they're leaving. I understand why the organization wants to make a business decision, and that's part of the game. It's unfortunately, that's how it is. But it comes down to dollars and cents, and some of the players would love if the team show a little bit more loyalty, but sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Yeah. So, you just got to make a decision what's best for you and your family, and, take advantage of the situation.
I want to kind of pick your baseball brain for a second here. I've gotten at bat of you during the 95 season against future Hall of Fame closer Lee Smith. And this happened in the same week where Manny Ramirez took Dennis Eckersley deep. So I want you to kind of walk through. The bases are loaded. The Indians are down, I think, 2 runs in this situation. You remember this at bat?
Yeah, of Lee Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so kind of walk us through. We've got a pitch by pitch here. If you can kind of just take us through. Go ahead, Robbie. You can roll that bad boy.
Okay, so the reason why I took the first pitch, he had just walked by Erga, and I had never faced him before. So I didn't know what his release point was. And I've seen like all the great hitters, like especially like Wade Boggs and stuff, and Tony Gwynn, they'll take the first pitch. And I just wanted to make sure, like, okay, now I know what his fastball looks like, and let's kind of go from there. So let's see what the second pitch was. Boom. Okay. I wasn't going to let another fastball go. I mean, it was pretty much in the same spot. So, and I think I think he wasted an 0-2 pitch.
Yeah, he put one a little bit outside. Yeah, he's taking his time and then delivers one a little bit off the plate.
Yeah, that was a fastball away. Should be a breaking ball, yes. And I knew he wasn't going to pretty much throw me a fastball in. And, he hung a breaking ball, and I just reacted to it. I thought he was just going to keep throwing fastballs and try to elevate, up in the zone. And he hung that one. And usually the closer in those situations, they want to get you up their best pitch. And he was just going to kind of show it, his breaking ball, and end up, hanging one. And I mean, it was right there in the wheelhouse.
What the heck is it like when you hit a walk-off grand slam in front of 41,000 people?
You know what? That stadium, and the thing about it is, like, no one left. Everybody stayed at home. Like, and we just kind of knew, like, even though, we're down to our last, couple outs, we still in this. Like, you have to get 27 outs. But that was the kind of confidence we developed, in the new stadium, with the new personnel, the new coaching staff, and we just kind of fed off of each other. Everybody was pushing each other. Everybody was so proud to, if I wasn't a hero one day, Manny was the hero. We got great pitching. They were excited to know that they were going to get a ton of run support, and we had a great mix of homegrown talent that we drafted and developed, and we sprinkled in some great veterans, and we all got together, and it just kind of clicked, and we just kind of snowballed, and you could just see the confidence building, and then pretty much we just became a runaway freight train and just ran over whoever got in the way.
We're taping this 2 days after the latest Hall of Fame induction class came out, and your name always pops up at this time of year. I don't know if you know this, but on social media, people always talk about what a decade of dominance you had. You left early because of the hip injury. Your counting stats are phenomenal, right? 295, 381 homers, more than 1,200 ribs. But your OPS plus, which, listen, these numbers when you were playing weren't as big a deal as they are today. Your OPS plus was 144. Your OPS all time, 933. You had a better OPS than Hank Aaron. You had a better OPS plus than Frank Robinson. Does it bother you that you didn't get more Hall of Fame consideration?
No, it doesn't bother me. It's probably, the same guys that, voted for me for the MVP. They're probably Hall of Fame votes. But, and I brought up an interesting, statistics on Tony Rizzo, because right now, when I watch MLB Network, they're saying that Mike Trout is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And he just finished his 13th year. I played 12 years, and my stats are better than his. So, and I'm like, okay, well, before last year, we both had 12 years in the big leagues, and my stats are better than his. He has the MVPs. I don't have the MVPs. I had a buddy of mine look up my 1998 stats, and he was like, well, how are you not the MVP? And I was like, well, I said, I think Juan Gonzalez had a better year. And he's like, no, he didn't. He's like, I looked it up. He's like, you blew him away. And I was like, I did? And I looked up the stats, and I was like, oh, okay, he just beat me in RBIs. He had 5 more. I had 152, and he had 157 RBIs. So, but, it's always an argument. But we know, it's pretty much a, popularity contest. I looked up Joe Myers' stats. They love that hometown, number 1 draft pick, born in Minnesota, played for the Twins. So they love that. But, Adrian Beltran got the 3,000 hits. And, it's nice to still be remembered for dominating the steroid era in the 90s. Guys were on steroids and putting up big numbers, and I still was able to outperform those guys. So, I'm proud of, playing. I wish I would have played longer. Obviously, I think if I would have, I played 12, I'm sure if I would have played 15 seasons, that would have been a different story. But, I don't have any regrets. If they don't, want me in the Hall of Fame, that's no big deal. But I will say this, and I always say this, that I always campaign for Pete Rose to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think it's about time for us as a baseball nation to forgive him and let him enjoy. I mean, when you think about playing 25 years and 4,000 hits and the grind of playing and winning, and it's time for us to let him enjoy his time in the Hall of Fame. I would love to see Manfred. I would love Manfred if he, hey, you know what? Let's forgive him. Let's embrace him. Let's let him have his day where he's just the only one going in the Hall of Fame, and I think that'll be great for baseball.
No question. That's always a hot button topic. There's a certain faction that'll say no, no, no. The words are very clearly written there in every clubhouse, which they are. And then there's another faction that'll say, listen, he never bet against his own team, and he's served his penalty, et cetera. So you could discuss that one for hours. I do think.
Right.
I think that there's no question about that. So you end up getting to Baltimore, and you end up hitting a home run in your last at bat there. once again, there's another video that is floating around social media of you recently. It just for whatever reason, it just popped up. And it's the one where you get hit by the pitch and you don't want to go to first base. So first of all, can you clear this up once and for all? Did you get hit?
Yes. Okay, so I think that's Hasengawa.
Yep.
And I had already hit 3 home runs that day. And I basically owned Hasengawa. And I knew first pitch, I said, okay, he's going to come up and in, and I'm just going to sit there and take. And, he ended up hitting me. And I was like, well, I want a chance to get 4 homers. I never had a chance. I've had one other chance to get 4 homers in a game. And I was like, and I told the ref, I said, umpire, I was like, I'm not going to first base. I was like, I want to hit. And I think it was Matt Wallback. And I was like, Matt, go tell him, throw the ball over the plate. Like, I want to hit. Like, let's go. I was like, I got a chance to get 4 home runs. Let's see what Hasegawa can do. And, so Ray came out and the umpire was, he was kind of like, well, he's like, I know you kind of want to hit, but it's like he hit you. And I said, well, no, just tell him ball 1, give him, or give him strike 1, either one, pick one. I say, I want to stay in the game and I want to hit. And, yeah. So, it grazed me. It grazed me. And, it was no big deal. I should have gotten out the way because I wanted to keep hitting, but we ended up winning the game, and that was the futuristic game where it's kind of like turn forward the clock. So we had those uniforms, and they were pretty cool looking. So that was a fun day. That was a fun day to beat the Angels.
So I am curious, when you tell the catcher Matt Wallback, tell him to fucking throw the ball over the plate, because that's what I saw. Go through. Tell him to throw the ball over the plate. What the heck was his reaction?
He was caught off guard too. Like he wasn't expected to have like a conversation. So, and I think Hasengawa, he did not have an interpreter. So, but I think he didn't. So he spoke English, and I was just basically, hey, go tell him, say, hey, you know what, throw it over the plate. Let's go. I got a chance to hit 4 home runs. I say, don't worry about anything else. Get me out. So, so that's the kind of, fun I loved. I remember we were in the old stadium in Cleveland, and we were playing Seattle. And I hit 3 home runs. And so Hargrove took me out. And I was like, Hargrove, you sure you want to take me out? He said, oh, you know what? Don't worry about this game. It's over. We're going to win this game. Well, Seattle ended up tying the game in the top of the 9th. And I would have come up with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 9th. And Thomas Howard was a defensive replacement for me. And he came up with the bases loaded, and it was like 1 out. And he ended up striking out, and we ended up losing that game. And Hargrove came up to me after the game, he's like, okay, I'm never taking you out of a game again.
How the heck does he take you out of a game when you have a chance at 4 homers?
I think we were up like 12-4, and the way that it looked like the lineup, it wasn't going to get to me in the 9th, the bottom of the 9th, and I think Seattle ended up tied the game, and Thomas Howard came up with the bases loaded, 1 out,
Hank,
bottom of the 9th.
Hank Howard. Oh man. Speaking of tanks. You hit one in the 95 playoffs against the Red Sox. Kevin Kennedy, the manager, ends up taking your bat, right? We all know what happened the year before in Chicago with the bat and the suspension. When did you realize that they were asking for the bat? Like, did you follow the whole story when you were around the bases and then you point to the biceps? You got to give me a little bit on this.
Okay, so I think after I crossed home plate, I was walking to the dugout, and Hargrove was kind of coming out, and I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Why is Hargrove coming out? And then by the time I took my helmet off and turned around, he was at the plate talking to the umpires, and they compensated the bat, and so when I saw that in the dugout, I was basically screaming a bunch of bad words, and because we knew the Red Sox they were the wild card team, and we knew they were just gonna. If they couldn't beat us, they were gonna try something to grasp for straws. So we were kind of prepared and ready for everything. And then if you go back and look at that season, and that was the '94 season. After they checked my bat, I actually performed a lot better. And then '95 was just continuation, and but I was prepared to face what's his name and hit a home run, and that was the series where Mo Vaughn struck out almost every time. Jose Canseco struck out every time, and I was like, well, this is pretty much the MVP race right here, and he didn't get a hit, and we're moving on, but he's still won it anyway, and we went on to the World Series. So it was great times. Emotions. Obviously in the playoffs, emotions were hot. We had faced Roger Clemens, we had knocked him out of the game, and we beat their best. We went on to play Seattle. We beat Randy Johnson. So, it was great times and great memories.
So I worked with Kevin Kennedy at Fox Sports years later, and I had to ask him about it. He goes, Chris, I didn't want to ask for Albert's bat, but every player in the dugout was like, you have to check his bat. He's like, oh, my God, he's going to be so mad at me, but my players are asking me to check the bat. I got to go check the bat.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that didn't work out too well, did it, Kev? No, it did not. So are you able to laugh at the bat incident from the year before because of the Jason Grimsley story of climbing through the ceiling, or does that still strike a nerve with you?
No, I laugh about it because, during the game, I don't know what happened. You hear stories, and, we knew, the White Sox thought they were the team to beat, but like we were kind of like the new kid on the block. Mm-hmm. And we just knew, since you can't beat us, you're going to try things and you're going to try to, knock us off our game. And I think it's kind of like in San Antonio. Remember, they used to turn the air conditioner on or turn the air off for LeBron when he came to town, and he couldn't perform. So, you had to try something. And, that was the year, I wish we didn't go on strike because, we were going to put a beat down on the White Sox, but we ended up doing it the next year. I mean, we ran the score up on them. I think we ended up winning the division by like 30 games. And I mean, like we stepped on everybody's throat. Everybody was mad at us. And we were like, well, we didn't see when we lost 100 games. Nobody felt sorry for us. So why should we owe some people? And so that's what we did. And that's why a lot of people didn't like us, because we were like, well, hey, you got to fight the bully sooner or later. So now it's our time to be the bully. So
it was the first time in my life where we had the ability to be cocky. You can't be cocky when you're losing 100 games.
Right,
so,
right.
Like we were like, as Indians fans back then, we were like, shit, this is great. I mean, Lofton with all his swagger, and Baerga didn't mind chirping, and you would sit there with the scowl on your face. Like I don't think we were a popular team outside of Cleveland, but I liked that.
You know what? And if you go back years before that, 91, 92, 93, we were all young players. But you know what? They said, you know what? Go out and play. Figure out this game. We can't lose forever. We made a couple key trades. We were all young. We made mental errors. We made physical errors, but we learned from those. And then you could just see in '94 how it changed. Like our confidence changed. We were in this brand new stadium, and they were like, "Wow, like it's sold out. Like we got 47,000 fans. Like this feels good. Okay, now it's time to go out and perform." And when the fans are cheering for you, it helps. I mean, it certainly does help. Take your game to the next level, and then we'd go on the road, and I mean, we get everybody boos, and that was the one thing that I loved. It's like I knew even when I came back to Cleveland, like I was going to get the best booze from everybody that has ever given them out. Like, and that's like the big compliment because, and I tell people, you're not going to waste your booze on like Joey Gallo hitting like 160. You're not going to waste your booze on him. You're going to waste your booze on LeBron when he's like, dropping 40 on you and beating you like a drum. So
I get it. Does anybody ever walk past you and just yell out the name Fernando Vina? And if so, do you turn around?
No, you know what? Some of my buddies, they'll, I guess it pops up on Twitter and they'll text me and I was like, you know what? And I was like, and I tell people, I say, go back and watch that. I said, Fernando Vina, he got up, dusted himself off, and like he was going to come after me. And I'm like, bro, it's not going to look good, me whooping up on you. I was like, it's not going to look good. Like, I'm a big guy, you're a little guy, you just need to go back. And I had told him earlier not to come in the baseline because it happened on Eddie Murray's at bat the couple innings before. Eddie Murray in the first at bat, he hits a ground ball to him. And I thought Vina was going to take the ball, throw it to second, finish the double play. He comes in the baseline and tags me, and it caught me off guard. And I was like, oh, don't do that again. Don't do that again. And, sure as shit, Eddie hits the same ground ball. And I was like, oh, crap. And I went down the line, and I thought he was going to pitch it. He came in, and I knocked him. I was like, I told you don't do it. And it was funny because, he got up, dusted himself off. He was talking smack, and, you didn't see the trainer run out on the field, and you didn't see the umpire issuing warnings and all this. And the umpires just basically, they let us police ourselves. They drilled me, and I go to first base, and then I think we drilled Matheny, and then there was a brawl, and that was pretty much it.
You didn't even get punished for it. You got fined, I think. You weren't suspended, were you?
No, I wasn't suspended. I was fine. And then, but here's the funny thing. The next week, Chad Kreuter does the same thing for the White Sox. He goes, they hit a ground ball. He's at first base. He goes to second. Second baseman comes. He plows, knocks the guy over, breaks up the double play. The White Sox end up winning the game, and he's a hero. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, okay, but that's how it went. And when I got to Chicago in '97, and Chad Kreuter was kind of busting my chops about that. He was like, you didn't hit him hard enough. That's what it was.
Albert Belle's become a softie all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah. I want to finish with this. You mentioned earlier that you didn't have any regrets. With the way that it has now all played out, should you have any regrets? I guess I'm asking this because you're such a pleasant guy to talk to. But I think when people bring up the name Albert Belle, the first thing they don't think of is what a kick-ass player he was. They're like, oh, God, he's that mean guy who did some wrong things. Like, do you ever sit there and think about that?
You know what? As far as regrets, I wish I would have had a better relationship with the media in Cleveland, especially with the everyday guys, the beat writers that, you had the Hoynesy, the, Ocker, and, those three guys that were there every day. And, especially when, I can, talk about the bad things as well as the good things, but it was just, I probably should have put forth an effort. I did in Chicago and Baltimore, and but I just didn't in Cleveland, and I wish I would have. And I know the thing about playing baseball is like when we started winning, like between spring training and going to these new stadiums, like we saw like a lot of celebrities and like, all these like other sports figures and stuff. And I wish I would have taken pictures with all of them that I met. Obviously if there was nowadays, we have, TikTok and, Instagram and, your selfies and stuff. And I could have posted all that stuff and taken pictures, but I wish I would have done the same thing because I met some, back then they were old school players, like the Ted Williams, the Pee Wee Reese, the Rod Carews, the Larry Dobies. You could just go up to them and sit down and hug them and talk baseball. And, they'd come in the dugout and we'd all, share stories in spring training. And, and that was the great thing about spring training. And that was the great thing about baseball is you saw these old timers. And then now, it's like a different story. Like, these players nowadays, they don't know the history of the game. They don't know. I mean, like if I walked into, somebody's locker room and they were like, well, who is this guy? Like, but we knew like when Reggie Jackson walked in, we're like, hey, Reggie, like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing in here? Like, you're supposed to be over there with the A's, So, we all kind of busting each other's chops, but, we just all get along. We all knew who, these old timers were. And that was the one regret is I wish I would have, taken pictures with those guys and been a little bit more accommodating with the Cleveland media.
Fair enough. Who was the one old timer you had a chance to sit down with that really sat with you? Because you just mentioned some ballers.
Yeah. When Larry Doby would come to town, mostly I remember Rod Carew worked a couple spring trainings with us. He had some great stories. When Winfield played for us, when we played the Dodgers, you see Pee Wee Reese.
Did you really meet Ted Williams?
Yeah, I got inducted into. I was it was the first year he inducted hitters into his little Hall of Fame, and we went down there, and I got a green jacket and everything.
Would you just win the Masters? A green jacket?
Well, it was his Ted Williams Hall of Fame jacket, and he'd sit down and we talk baseball, and I'm like, it's pretty simple. I was like, I'm sitting fastballs, like I don't want to miss any fastballs, and I was like, I know you're the same way. Like, I mean, he had an incredible eyesight. But he wasn't sitting there trying to like take any fastballs. I mean, he was trying to do damage, and he put up some big numbers, and and then in spring training we always saw Bob Feller. We always had shared great memories with him, and we kind of teased him a little bit, but he was he was fun about it because we were like, yeah, you were only throwing about like 90 miles an hour. You weren't throwing 100, like if they'd have had radar guns, you only been throwing 90. Like we'd like lit you up and stuff. And he laughed and giggled. So, but the old timers, they were great. They had some great stories, and I had a chance, like Goose Gossage, Winfield. So they had all the the Steinbrenner and the Yankee craziness stories, and so you can just go around the teams, and we'd see Ken Griffey Sr. and we talked to him, and it's just like a long list of old timers that we were just happy to see and share stories with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that Kenny Lofton always tells that Dr. Freeze story about you breaking the air conditioning. How cold do you keep it in your house in Arizona when it's hot?
Actually, the house I'm in now, what I did was I got it double insulated.
Oh, okay.
So it stays pretty cool. I think in the summertime it's like 78, but it's it's like an ice box at 78. It's cool.
All right, good. No need to break the thermostat on that one.
No, you don't want to. You don't want to because These are expensive thermostats.
Listen.
These repairmen are more expensive too to come out.
This was a blast. I really, really enjoyed it. Thanks for taking me on a trip down memory lane. And this was a fun hour for me, man. This really was. And I hope you know that when we bring up the name Albert Belle in Cleveland sports circles, that we don't think about the guy who left and went to Chicago and all that sort of stuff. We think about the guy who rejuvenated a city and put baseball on the map for an entire couple of generations of fans. So thanks.
Well, you didn't show my one highlight, the history making highlight with the 50th homer.
Well, why don't we do that? Why don't
we have that video? Okay.
Yeah, first ever 50-50 guy in a season. This is it against Kansas City, I do believe, right?
Yeah, this kid was named Bunch. He was a rookie that they called up. First pitch, he threw, I'd never faced this guy. He threw one right down the middle. I took it, and then the second pitch, he threw it pretty much in the same spot, fouled it straight back. And, I thought he was going to waste an 0-2 pitch, and he threw it right down Peach Street and knocked it out the stadium. And I mean, this was exciting. This was, to realize, being the first player, there's Video Joe, there's Frank, to be the first and the only player to do that in Major League history. And, but you look at those great teammates. I mean, that was a great group of guys that helped me, be successful. And then there's Slider. He was a cool cat too. I like Slider. Yeah.
Dude, look at Alvaro Espinoza, by the way. Don't sleep on him trying to steal your curtain call. He came out and wanted to put his hands up. That is typical Alvaro Espinoza.
Yeah, that's true Alvy. Yeah.
Look at him trying to steal it. That's great. Well, listen, man, this was, as I said, a ton of fun. I really appreciate it. Keep sending me your text when we're talking about your Minnesota Vikings. All right.
Yeah, it's another heartbreaking year.
Listen.
Maybe next year. Well, that's what we always say.
Not every team can make the playoffs when you start 4 quarterbacks. Only the Cleveland Browns can. Okay, we'll let you know.
I know, right?
I'm going to keep talking shit on that text chain to you about the Vikings. I'm just letting you know.
Okay. All right. I'll be ready.
And don't be a stranger. All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. For our amazing producer, Robbie Scirocco, and the legendary Albert Belle, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next time here on the Chris Rose Rotation, a production of John Boy Media.